Hey, it's Sonder. So I just came back from purchasing some car insurance, and I have more insight into the endless waking nightmare that is called capitalism. Now, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir for quite a lot of people, but it blows my mind that gambling with human life is not only legal, but legally required. The state actually requires that you have a certain amount of car insurance for around $40,000 worth of damages in the state I live, which is quite a lot. It would probably not be so high if mechanics and health insurance were not also so extortionate. But regardless, that's a lot of money, and insurance premiums covering that is also quite a lot of money. And insurance in general is a form of gambling that's arguably extremely unethical because it involves gambling on the misfortune of others. Even more so than betting on a hand of poker, which, has varying legality in some states. Hilariously, one type of gambling is not only legal, but actively required, and it's insurance. Especially if you want to drive a car, which for a lot of people out of the range of public transport, they need to. So, yeah, it's essentially a required expense for many people. And it is an expense that essentially pays a firm to do nothing and to essentially give out money only when it's absolutely necessary to avoid paying out whenever they can. And when they can't avoid paying out, to pay out at a rate lesser than what you've paid them over the years. If that were not the case, these firms would not be able to pay their employees anything and would not make a profit. They aren't charities, they're businesses, they make profit. And as a result, they generally offer pretty bad deals. You're often paying for nothing when you're paying for insurance. You're just paying a required fee that our government wants you to pay a specific set of corporations. This is a required fucking fee, much like rent, when all the property is already owned by oligarchs. It's absurd. And there's a specific aspect of this required legality of car insurance that caught me off guard. As cynical as I am, you'd think I would expect it all by now, but no. Still, somehow, capitalism manages to surprise and disgust me in new and interesting ways. So, without further ado, there are some laws called managed competition. Now, if you believe in a free market where competition is natural and it's survival of the fittest, sort of social Darwinism type way, this should sound obscene. Any sort of managed competition is surely not competition at all, especially if it's being managed by those who are already dominant in a given market. That sort of just sounds like a formalized version of monopolies, and you'd kind of be right. So there's an executive summary. These are a set of laws still on the books. In addition to trial, which decided, unsurprisingly, that insurance corporations are not actually obliged to pay out under any circumstances, even if there are circumstances fairly directly stipulated in documents that customers sign. So the managed competition laws, so to speak, are ones which, unsurprisingly, absolutely fuck over actual free market competition, if such a thing is even desirable. Although it's probably preferable to monopoly and autocratic oligarchy, which we have now. So it involved, one, the removal of price regulation, as this executive summary says, on mass.gov. Oh my god, Kat, I'm talking about capitalism. Don't get in the way. You don't even know. All right, you don't have to pay rent. For the past 30 years, the Commissioner of Insurance established a single rate ceiling for all companies in a formal administrative proceeding in which the Attorney General represented consumers. And the insurance industry's rate proposals were closely scrutinized. So keep in mind, the industry's proposals were necessarily designed to create profit, meaning they were still probably, in some ways, ripping off customers. They were not providing an even balanced service. They cannot by their very nature. But it used to be, apparently, we had someone in government actually sort of looking out for the little guy. That position was removed. Based on this review, the commissioner set an insurance premium that was consistently lower than that proposed by industry, billions of dollars lower over the last 20 years. The regulated rate also contained limits on variation across territories and classes, and thus capped the charges insurance could levy against urban drivers. The new system ended this price regulation by one, in eliminating the rate ceiling, meaning they could charge customers with no maximum limit. Two, ending the requirement that companies disclose their data to anyone. And three, beginning to phase out caps on urban rates. There's also the introduction of rating based on non-driving factors, which essentially lets insurance companies raise your rates for essentially any reason, including things like race or gender or whatever else they feel like measuring and arbitrarily increasing your charges for. That's not a great thing. And three, the repeal of take-all-comers. In the regulated market, insurers were required to provide insurance to all drivers. In managed competition, insurers are permitted to reject any new customer. They choose customers who cannot find an insurer will offer them a policy will be randomly assigned to insurers in the residual market. As it's essentially, it's deregulation cringe. And it's deregulation that, ironically, it decreases the power of the free market. Essentially, it shifts the power by far to the insurance companies as opposed to the consumers. And as a result, causes a whole lot more consolidation. It's not really much competition now, is it? If you can charge whatever the hell you want and deny people for whatever reason you feel like. It makes it far easier for businesses to monopolize under those conditions than ones in which essentially everything is a good deal more flat and regulated. So this is horrible, and it's still in law. This was signed into law in around July 2007, so during the Bush administration. However, it's worth noting Obama did not overturn it. Obviously, Trump didn't, because he's a fascist. And Biden has yet to overturn it. So we'll see what happens. These laws are goddamn absurd, and the fact that they're actually on the books is hilarious to me. The idea of managed competition just seems like an oxymoron. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the term, but I don't think there's any real way to frame this in a way which doesn't just benefit the handful of people who own insurance companies. This doesn't benefit the consumers. This certainly doesn't benefit people who get into accidents because insurers can deny them or raise premiums or rate them based on non-driving factors or whatever. It's bad for almost everybody except the handful of people who own these companies. And I suppose the people who work under them, but they get paid by wage 90% of the time. And as we've discussed plenty of times on this channel, wage is horrible. It's theft. And they probably are not benefiting as much as the people who actually own the firm. So the partners or the CEO. In some cases, they're the same person. Yeah, absolutely god-awful and directly oligarchic. So yeah, I suppose that's my reaction to having to pay goddamn $1,700 for nothing other than like a slip of paper saying I can drive my car now. It's fucking ridiculous, and if I ever need it, they're not obligated to actually pay out. Furthermore, I don't really see any good reason why people shouldn't be paying such amounts that would bankrupt them for medical bills or mechanical repair, property damage, other than other industries charging obscenely high amounts for necessary costs, like paying to not die in the case of medicine, or paying to be able to get to work in the case of mechanical repairs. Those expenses are essentially non-negotiable and not really subject to normal free market pressures. Ditto with insurance. You can choose insurance with better deals, but regardless, if they make a profit, they're screwing you over because you're not even receiving a service or a product with some sort of variable value that's a little subjective. This is just a money in, money out, fairly simple calculation where they're definitely just taking money from the vast majority of people. Wow, real bad. Anyway, I'll try to have a little bit more of an optimistic topic for the next video I'm going to shoot in a little bit. But yeah, that's it for now. Sonder out.